Greg, I haven't given you what I... Sorry, mate. Oh, mate. Hey, congratulations on your run.
Yeah, thanks.
Well done, mate. That's impressive. Trez. Just in time. Good afternoon, councillors, members of the public, officers, welcome along. I declare this meeting open. Under announcement, councillors, I have a couple of announcements to make. The delegation, the mayoral delegation that went to China and Japan recently, we're having a delegation meeting on the 5th or 6th of June, and I expect that a report will be brought to council either late June or early July. Some of the key points that I've picked up following that meeting, that tour, great opportunities for our city in building on what we've done in the past, that is with our children interchange each year, particularly with Setagaya. Certainly in the areas of business, technology, research, waste to energy and tertiary studies, there's enormous opportunities for our city and the Bunbury-Geograph region in general. And just of note, the cost of the city of my attendance on that delegation tour was $3,574. Further announcement, the proposed Civic Cultural Precinct Forum will now be combined with the Parking Forum, and that will be held mid to late July. And just a reminder, councillors, as many of you are aware, this is Reconciliation Week, and I urge all of you, if you can, to get involved wherever possible. We had a terrific march last Saturday. A few of us participated in that and got a little bit wet, but it was well worth the walk. And I understand that they're having a function at Maker & Co this Friday evening, so those of you who can get along to that, please do so. We have approved leave of absence, Councillor Cook and Councillor Steele. The rest of us are here. Declarations of interest. There are a number of declarations that have been printed there for us to review, and Councillor Smith has also declared an impartiality interest on 10.45 and also advised that her spouse will be speaking tonight on that item. And just for the purposes of people in the audience, Councillor Smith has declared an impartiality interest. That means she can stay in the chamber and vote. She's actually required to. Someone move the confirmation of the previous council meeting minutes, please. Councillor Cleary. Councillor Brown seconded. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Are there any petitions, councillors? We have a number of requests for presentations tonight, and I'll just run through those. Requests from Jenny Payet, Shanae Norris, Deanne Flay to speak on the item 10.4.2. Those who agree, please raise your hand. That's approved. We had a request from Mr. Haydar Al-Shamani to speak, but he's decided not to speak. Instead, he's left a typed message there for us on our table. Mr. Ziggy Yukval will be speaking on behalf of Eugene Novak, Tim Fry, Ian Newton, Teresa Farnell on the item 10.43. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. Mr. Terry Rogers wishes to speak on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. John and Thelma Kemp on 10.43. Those who approve, please indicate. Mr. Jamil Molinari wishes to speak on item 10.44. Those who approve, please indicate. It's approved. Is Mr. Fry speaking on 10.43 as well? Is Mr. Fry in the room? No. Mr. Martin Hughes will be speaking on behalf of Martin Hughes and Kira Hoff. With respect to item 10.45, those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. And Mr. Smith, David Smith, will be speaking on behalf of Mr. Shine on item 10.45. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. So, have I got them all, members of the audience? Everybody happy? So what we do is, when we get to those items, I'll invite the speakers up. You have 5 minutes each for each item, each of you on a deputation, and then away we go. Councillors, dealing with tonight's agenda, coming out for discussion are 10.2.1, which requires an absolute majority, 10.42, 4.3, 4.4 and 4.5. Are there any other items that anyone wishes to raise? If not, can I have somebody move the balance? Councillor Steck, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor McGuell, all in favour? It's carried unanimously, thank you. Item 10.2.1 requires an absolute majority. Can I invite somebody to move that recommendation, please? Thank you, Councillor McCleary. Seconder, Councillor McGuell. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put it all in favour. Are those against? One against. That's carried unanimously, thank you. Ten 4.2. Jenny Payet. Is Jenny in the audience? Sorry if I've mispronounced that, Jenny. Come forward. Welcome along. You have 5 minutes. There's a clock in front of me here somewhere to guide you.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for giving myself the opportunity to speak with regards to our letters of objection and on behalf of the WA Cancer Council, St John of God concern to us is the current and future health status of the Bunbury community, where the rates of hospitalisation in the Bunbury area for conditions as lung cancer, COPD, esophageal cancer, asthma, heart disease and stroke can be directly attributed to tobacco smoking. City of Bunbury officers will be aware of the WA Department of Health requirement for local public health planning in local government, as deemed by the Public Health Act 2016. Although the requirement for this public health planning will not come into effect until Part 5 of the Public Health Act is implemented in approximately 4 years' time, some forward-thinking South West local governments will commence producing their public health plans, for example the Shires of Collingwood and Capel, with others in consideration. Local government obligations will be to support the need for initiatives across 3 priority areas, one of which is, I quote, empowering and enabling people to make healthy lifestyle choices. This is to include, I quote, to drive down smoking rates in the community. Since the City of Bunbury's smoking rates amongst adults are approximately 18%, that is 6% higher than the state rate. It is also 3% higher than the Perth metro area. It would seem that the need to drive down smoking rates in the Bunbury community should be a priority. A commitment to smoke-free is already being demonstrated in initiatives adopted by the cities of Perth, Fremantle, Cottesloe, Cockburn, Joondalup and the Shire of Augusta-Margaret River, over and above the requirements of the Tobacco Products Control Act. So allowing a shisha area in Bunbury will undermine and inhibit this future City of Bunbury public health plan. It will set a precedent for future developments of a similar nature and impede the City of Bunbury public health plan progress. Allowing a shisha area also undermines any broader efforts to reduce smoking and uptake, in particular amongst young people. The proposed area is easily seen from Victoria Street and in a location where young adults frequent during the day and seek entertainment by night, hence contributing to the likely and opportunistic experimentation of shisha and to the normalisation of smoking. With no food or drink permitted, it effectively becomes a smoking room. Smoking shisha is not a risk-free alternative to cigarette smoking. It can be more dangerous for those who smoke shisha as well as for those who are unwittingly exposed to second-hand smoke emitted from shisha pipes. The challenge for the City of Bunbury officers will be ensuring this shisha venue complies with strict legislation. According to our local government counterparts in the metro areas, this is an ongoing challenge. It is time-intensive, imposing notable imposts on local government infringement officers. This includes, but is not limited to, ensuring the area fully complies with no food, drinks or tables, and not allowing shisha pipes to be displayed under Section 22 of the Tobacco Products Control Act when they are not in use, and ensuring ID checks. In summary, we appeal to Council to continue and consider the short and long-term impact of their decision with respect to the health of our local community and visitors to Bunbury, future public health planning and the impost on city resources to ensure compliance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Someone prepared to move the executive recommendation? Councillor Stick.
Thank you,
Second
sir.
up, Councillor.
Thank you, sir. Whilst I sympathise with the Public Health Department and their views, I would expect anyone from the Public Health Department and also private health departments to actually speak out against any kind of smoking. That's a given. But what I will say is it's not our role to legislate whilst it is permitted and legal to smoke in this state. It is not my role as a local government member to come down heavy on someone who chooses to smoke or who chooses to smoke shisha. I will also say that on a planning ground, there is no reasonable space where you can say that you can't approve this. And I note the problems with associated with the Mayor last week, why this has come before Council, because it clearly does conform with the town planning scheme. And therefore, I challenge anyone in this room to be able to say, well, you can go against this planning application. Furthermore, I would simply say this, that Melbourne, Sydney and Adelaide do this very, very well. I have visited Adelaide on several streets and I can say, even in Melbourne, they do it exceptionally well. I do plead to the Health Department and indeed private health options. But let me just say this. This is a cultural thing. This is a cultural thing from the Middle East. And I guarantee probably most of these products are imported from the Middle East. And I dare to say that I do have a very big following in Perth who is Baha'i faith, who I have been invited to many and many of their celebrations, and they are really loving culture, and I really welcome them if they decide to come to Bunbury. And I can simply say that just because they choose to smoke doesn't make them people that should be outcast because of their culture is to smoke. And so therefore, to say that they are not going to have options to drink and eat, it is a restaurant also, they can go and get food and drink, but not in the allocated area for smoking. So let's be realistic about that. They can choose to smoke in that area, then choose to go and eat. No different than people do inside and outside of all venues at Bunbury. And as I said last week, under the Alcohol Accord Committee, there is a 2-metre rule from any doorway from any kind of venue in Bunbury. So until such time as the state government says we legislate against smoking, then who are we in this room to say, oh, excuse me, you can't smoke in this city? And I'm not prepared to go down that path. So if you are, good luck with that one. But I'll just go back to planning grounds. I don't see any kind of valid reason that says this can't be approved.
That's right.
And I think that when you ask for a capacity for, us to start to govern, well, let's go back to the federal government. How many billions of dollars do they actually tax cigarette products? How many billions of dollars? So let's not weigh up what our role here is, because it's already clear. And quite frankly, if you want to put a tax on people, well, it's not our role to do that. The federal government's already done that. And by law, if this business gets a Guernsey, they can't advertise smoking products anyway. We all know that. So I urge you all to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. What the lady who just spoke with us, councillors, said was all absolutely correct. There's no question about it. But the issue for us in front of us is simply a planning matter. It's not our position to make a moral judgment on what's best for people's health. That's largely controlled by the state's health department. And this activity is not illegal. It's not illegal, so we have a planning decision to make. And on the merits of the application, it should be approved. There's no question about it. And I concur. I'm not even completely convinced why it needs to even be in this forum and be debated as such, because clearly it falls within what's allowed on that site and it fits within the rules. So I feel, as sympathetic as I am to the presentation that was made, that as councillors we don't have any choice based on making a decision about planning. This is a decision about planning, not about public health. Thank you.
Speaker against, Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Well, I'll just refute both of those assertions by the mover and the seconder. We do have a part to play in this decision, and indeed councillors can be assured that they're entitled to consider and determine the question of whether or not Bunbury wants commercial smoking areas within its boundaries. If you vote against this, I have an alternative that we resolve to refuse the development, and that we resolve as an interim policy position that the Bunbury City Council does not support, encourage or promote smoking in public places within the city. Note, I didn't say we're going to ban it, we're not going to ban it. And that the city directs the CEO to draft an appropriate statutory instrument to regulate smoking in public places within the city during preparation of our local public health plan. Now, a couple of things first up. This is not a matter of moral consideration for anybody in this room. We're not judging smokers, we're judging whether or not we want to promote openly smoking places in Bunbury. Nothing to do with morals at all. It is about public health. Nor is it about cultural equality. And anybody who thinks this is about cultural equality is just not in the right space. The differences between allowing something that is legal and promoting it have to be accentuated. Yes, smoking is legal. Tobacco Act says so. But hey, everybody in this room, and probably everybody in Bunbury, is aware of the campaign against tobacco smoking and towards the future where nobody smokes. It's still their choice. It's still legal, but hey, it costs the community. So it's not a question of the Tobacco Products Control Act, and it's not about banning smoking. Let's make sure that we know that. It is about considering and determining the question of whether or not we want to have public smoking places in Bunbury where people wander past and see people smoking shisha or other tobacco products and say, whoa, that's cool, we can do that. We're not going to do that. I don't want to do that, and I'm asking councillors to vote against it. I just want to make sure that everybody is certain that they're aware that we are entitled to have a say on this. And I draw your attention one more time to the Local Government Act, Division 2, Subdivision 1, 3.5, it sounds pretty drummy, 3.54b. Nothing in the Health Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1911 or the Public Health Act 216 prevents a local government making local laws under this Act about matters relating to public health, as defined in the Public Health Act 216. It's great reading. It states that we're entitled to look at the wider health and well-being of the community. My point has been all the way along, we're not banning smoking, we've got no intention of banning smoking. What we are saying is that we're entitled to consider whether or not we can block areas in the Bunbury that are in public view and say, here, come along, smoke here, and influence other people, particularly children. There's been a huge effort in this state, in this Commonwealth, to ensure that we do the best for public health. The City of Bunbury has an opportunity to lead. It's not about being a nanny state, it's not about that at all. It's about looking after our folk, looking after their health by not promoting something in public that is essentially a killer. I have the alternative resolution, councillors, and I'm hoping that you'll all vote against the resolution as it is. It will come back to have an alfresco area, hopefully, not a drama. If it was only an alfresco area, it wouldn't have come here. But this is about a decision-making process in this council. Let's not deny it, let's not run away. We don't want to promote Bunbury as a place of bongs, booze and economic blues. So vote against this resolution and support the alternative. Thank you.
I'll be speaking for the recommendation. Just a couple of points that I won't repeat what Councillor Steckenhaven has said, but just a couple of points on Councillor Kelly's comments. Is it a public place? I think it's a private property. I think it's private property. A local law is subsidiary to an Act of Parliament. We have an Act which governs tobacco selling and display, where a local law is a very local law. It's subservient to an Act of Parliament. So, and I'm quite confident that if we were to contemplate a local law banning smoking in public places, the state government would overrule us because it's contrary to the law of the state, the Act of the state. What might happen in the future is for the future to determine, and it may well be, as the Speaker said, that there will be changes to legislation, but at the moment, under the existing legislation, this city is bound to follow the law, and the law is quite clear. This is a legal activity on private land. It complies with our town planning scheme. It doesn't contravene anything else. I'm urging us to vote for this recommendation. Speaker against. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can hear what you're saying, and the people who are for this development are speaking with their heads. But there's also a heart matter in here as well, and a health matter, and I'm going to be speaking from the health and heart. I'm surprised that out of 19 public submissions being received during the advertising period for development approval for the proposed alfresco shisha bar, only one objection was received. I can only surmise our community either did not hear about it or do not really understand the problems supporting and promoting a shisha bar in our beautiful seaside community, what it might bring. It is a fact that numerous cafes and restaurants serving shisha or hubble bubble have been a trend already. There has been a gross lack of information disseminated to the public about the health risk in smoking shisha. The serious problem here is that most smokers wrongfully take to the hubble bubble thinking that it only poses a light health risk compared to the serious health-related complications of cigarette smoking. However, medical experts have warned that shisha has a more perilous impact on health compared to cigarette smoking. They say most smokers have a misconception based on a wrongful and unscientific notion that tobacco used in shisha is herbal and does not affect body organs. Most people misleadingly believe shisha does not contain tobacco and that when they smoke they inhale herbal or artificial flavoured products. This is the added flavours that make them feel they are smoking fruits, while they are actually taking in tobacco and are likely to become addicted to nicotine. Shisha smokers should realise that it is far more dangerous than cigarette smoking because the amount of nicotine in shisha cannot be measured due to packing differences. Shisha smoking does not only affect the user, but also the people around them who involuntarily inhale second-hand smoke. And we haven't even dealt with the cleanliness of the implements. That needs also a health department to be checking on that is being done. Since shisha is produced during a mixture of tobacco, charcoal, and some additives to give it flavour, it also contains massive amounts of undesirable toxins. The tobacco present is much the same as if found in cigarettes, except the addition of charcoal makes it even more hazardous than regular tobacco. Some believe that since it passes through water, it's safer than regular smoke. However, this is completely spurious. Another noteworthy point is that the amount of smoke produced in one session is far greater than any cigarette gives, with 600 puffs, cigarette equivalent, being typical for 1 hour shisha session. This would be the equivalent of smoking 2 packets of cigarettes in one go. It is addictive with lifelong health problems. Do we want to be the ones responsible for encouraging this addictive habit for our city? Several diseases directly linked to shisha smoking include lung cancer, mouth cancer, stomach cancer, erectile dysfunction, and tuberculosis. The tuberculosis is about the cleanliness, okay? And it is then passed on from other people if there was somebody there who had tuberculosis. Only an idiot thinks it won't happen to them. You cannot have it both ways. Either you promote a holistic community health lifestyle or you don't. Horrors of horrors when Bunbury was named and shamed as having one of the highest population of ice users in Australia not so long ago, a reputation we're actively working to lose.
Point of order, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councillor Steck. Councillor McCleary, just
Thank you.
confine
I
your argument
apologise.
to this issue. Thank you.
Our planning department have their hands tied as there is not a local government policy or position regarding tobacco smoking that they can produce to prevent this or other development application for shisha bars from succeeding. In fact, they do not know what council's position is on this issue. Tonight will be telling. This recommendation is not a progressive development for Bunbury, it is a retrogression. The good old days when sex, drugs and rock and roll seemed harmless and trendy.
Point of order again, sir.
I think Councillor McCleary is finished. Thank you, Councillor Steck. Is there a further speaker for the recommendation? Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Smoking has a very deep meaning in relation to my family. My father smoked for 54 years, and he died of complications in relation to the smoking. He had asthma and emphysema, and by the time he died, he had 10% use of his lungs. I've also had trouble with my lungs over the years, losing a portion of my left lung through an operation. But that's not the issue. When we say that we're going to support public smoking, basically all you have to do goes down to where my shop is and see the staff from the restaurants coming out to the market square and you always have 4 or 5 people out there smoking. There's no difference. George Orwell would be spinning in his grave right now with 1984, with Big Brother watching. It is legal. It's not saying that it's supporting smoking whatsoever. In fact, what the research has found, that the advertising, the changing of the packets, talking within schools, what's causing the drop in the use of smoking is the tax that the federal government is placing upon cigarettes. Once you hit the pocketbook, the amount of smoking decreases. Now this business, and we have no idea in relation to the financial viability of this business, they're making a decision of taking a look at 18% of the population. Could they possibly be losing 82% of the population as customers? That's a possibility. But it's their decision. It's their business. When we talk about dangers, I got a product down in my shop that can kill a person in 3 minutes. It's called peanuts. Should we ban peanuts because it can kill a person in 3 minutes? No. We label it. Contains peanuts, may contain traces of peanuts. We talk with the customer, and in fact, sometimes the parents come in with their children. My child is extremely allergic to peanuts. What can we buy? Now, I can turn around and say, and this is what I normally do, don't try anything. But
I think your point of order is that you're requesting the council to remain focused on the topic in hand, and I'd ask you to do that,
Okay.
Councillor Morris.
So it boils down to, in terms of safety. If we don't ban that product, then how can we ban smoking? This is a person that's been in business for 20 years. It's their decision. They've gone through the city. The planning is there to accept it, and all we're doing is accepting reality. It's their decision in relation to their business. Thank you.
Further speaker against? Councillor Stick to close.
Thank you, sir. I will make this very, very quick. I just do need to respond to some comments made by some councillors through you, Mr Mayor. I do welcome your comments and also comments from Councillor Morris. Although when it comes to tuberculosis, I will simply say this, is that the federal government does allow persons into this country through immigration with benign tuberculosis. And anyone in the medical industry that knows that benign tuberculosis is, a sitting time bomb. So I'm not going to use that as part of this as a planning ground. This is a planning matter and it's simple. We all know that it conforms to the Town Planning Scheme number 8. Yes, you can have a heart, but excuse me, that doesn't count when it comes to a planning matter. You've only got 3 reasons to reject a planning matter, and heart doesn't come into it. The other thing I would also simply say is this, is that assertions really, really do cause danger. And again, I want to just bring councillors back to the officer's recommendations and the fact of the Town Planning Scheme, and there is no way that we can reject the appraisal. And if we go down of saying that, some of the businesses can do this or that, and we're setting aside things, well, we're murking the waters and we're creating a chaos when, as the Mayor rightly says, it is legislation. Follow the legislation and we can't go wrong, because otherwise we're being presumptuous. Otherwise we're simply saying that some people know what they're doing and some people don't. Who am I to say what they know and what they don't? Every single smoker in this city knows what they're doing. Give me a break. So, no, I think councillors are fully aware what our duty is here this evening. So I urge councillors to vote for the motion and let the businessman get on with his job, because, as the Mayor rightly says, there is state legislation that protects the health and also the smoking and also advertising on cigarette products.
Thank you. I'll put it all in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's carried. Yes, Councillor Kelly, Smith and McCleary voted against. The rest voted for, and it's carried. Thank you. We move to 10.4.3. Mr. Uckval, welcome to you.
Thank you. Could you put number 1? Thank you. My name is Ziggy Usual. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, for allowing me to speak. I am speaking on behalf of 5 of the 6 inhabitants of the Farnell Street, and 5 of them oppose strenuously construction of the extra garage and spacing on 6th inhabitant of this street. Locality is quiet, lovely, low density and low height. Well-developed park is visible on the right hand. Manicured lawn on all properties. Site is zoned R20, residential, with little to no possibility to ever turn into Maccombie or light industrial estate. Proposed development is already contravening existing zoning from R20, because on the left hand, where you see the fencing at the moment, there is about 5.5 meters between the house and the fence line. If proposing zoning is developed, could you put next picture, please? No, other one, with the numbers. Sorry about that. No, other one.
It's your 5 minutes,
Yes,
Mr.
this one,
Uckval.
sorry. If you see already, that is 3,690 meters, nearly 3.7 meter, that is leaving about 600 meters to the fence line. According to R20 zoning, it's 6 foot, in other words, 1.8 meter, offset from fence line. R20 is allowing driveway of the width of 6 plus 3 meters. At the moment, it's already 12 continuous meters driveway with further expansion of 4 meters. This means 16 meters driveway. In application was modified. Could you put next, please? Not that one, other one. Yeah, previous one. Application was modified, and that's how it will look after construction. If you see this big barn there, that is with modification, with no doors. Now, legally speaking, what will prevent owner 2 weeks after this construction to install the doors? Doors are non-structural, therefore they don't require council permission to erect. What will be permitting or forbidding him to install the doors? Other thing, he will start driving because he needs to access this barn. It is exactly in the scale as is on the project. And it, as you see, height is overpowering as well. We have now on the left-hand doors, other 3 doors on the right hand, and in the center, big black hole. Could you swap that one for this with, yes. Or we have now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 garage doors. It looks like Maccombie Street, not as a residential area. Owner tried to create sort of the industrial look which we try to avoid. Driveway is already exceeding allowable crossover. Proposed parapet wall is on the boundary virtually, contravening offset zone. Amended plans suggest structure have no doors, but as I said, what will prevent installation of the doors 2 weeks after construction finished? Development will negatively affect existing neighborhood and will lower value of all properties on the street. I would implore actually on behalf of the inhabitants, council to vote against the development. There is otherwise. This is in proportion. Look at the height and width of the development. It's gigantonormous, nearly of the size of original dwelling. In view of the above, all concerned neighbours ask and implore Mr. Mayor and councillors to vote for the rejection of the proposed development. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
Sorry?
Mr. Rogers, next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and committee members, councillors. The main purpose of the structure is to park a caravan. And as we know, caravans are getting more and more popular, and they're bigger. So this is to shelter the caravan for the majority of the year, because it will be parked there. There is no wall to the side fence. There's no wall on this proposed structure. And the owner has made concessions to remove the roller door. They reduced the height of it, so it's within planning guidelines. They've set back further 500 mil from the front elevation, and they've removed the crossover. It's on the lower side of the road, which again reduces its impact. The main front elevation of the house has manicured gardens. That is what's caught my eye. It's a real feature to the whole street. It's not a workshop, it's a parking facility. And I think, council may well come across these more and more in the future if they haven't done already. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there someone prepared to move the executive recommendation? Councillor Steck, seconder. Thank you. Councillor McGraw. Councillor Steck.
Thank you, sir. Just as the gentleman says, I think that council will see these more and more and more, considering that I know for a fact there's a lot of people in our council, Australind and even Eton, where people over 60 tend to go north for a good 4 months of the year, and then they come back, and their houses are just vacant for a period of time. So the local law that provides for them to keep their assets out in the sun and the wind and rain. I mean, I think that there does cause for a need for these people to be able to house their assets, and even on their private land. And given the look of that property, it's clear that they have more than one person who works in that household, probably teenagers or young people who work. And that's another Aussie icon, is the fact that we have kids with utes and stuff in the front yard. We need more than one or two, car parks. It's just a fact of life living in Australia with bigger houses. We live in bigger homes than other people and other cultures. And we need to embrace that with pride. And I don't see anything wrong with this. And I think that given the fact that you've got people who still choose to live here because they love the city but go northbound, and you've got heaps of people who do that, we need to accommodate that for them. So I'm all supportive of this. I really am. And given the fact that they look after their garden so well, and it does look like it's a street improvement, how could you say no to these people? Really? I urge you to support the motion.
Thank you.
Question, please, Mr. Mayor.
A question, Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the planning, have we exhausted discussions for negotiation for a better design, or is this it? Are there any more designs that we could come up and look at?
Well, I'll ask the CEO to respond, but I would imagine that it would be almost endless the design options, but I'll ask the CEO if he wishes to respond.
Through Mr Mayor, I'll probably defer to the Manager of Planning, Sustainability and Environment to make a comment. The department has had the consultation with the owner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Essentially, as the applicant has explained, we need to accommodate the caravan, pardon me. And consequently, there are limits to how small we can get it. They've been very receptive to the idea of taking the main feature that would have created the visual problem to the street, and that's the roller door, and keeping it permeable. The issue around whether or not that would be covered up is a compliance matter, so we're confident that we have got a product that's as low and as permeable and as lightweight, and one that we will obviously monitor to make sure that it is actually constructed as appropriate. But no, we've got to the smallest possible we can before it just becomes unproductive.
Councillor McGraw, did you wish to speak?
Just a quick question, and just probably more of an assurance just on that basis and the basis of the speaker, is that can we just confirm that obviously that one of the conditions of this, that the roller door will be not included, so obviously just an assurance that no one can go on that roller door is put in 6 months' time.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Do you want to speak? Speaker against? I'll put it all in favour, please indicate. 1, 2, 3. Those against? 2, 3 against, that's carried. So that's approved. (10.44), Mr Molinaro, welcome. You know what to do.
I've been practicing. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you,
Welcome.
councillors, for the opportunity to speak for the proposal at 12 Walnut Court in Davenport. I just want to read a statement that we've prepared. So, the property at 12 Walnut Court, Davenport, will be used for the storage and sale of fertiliser products. Landmark, the operator, is a national company with significant representation in regional centres. They have engaged Rosenhack, a company which has expertise in the safe storage and handling of dangerous goods and compliance, particularly in the relation to agricultural and veterinary chemicals. Rosenhack has provided advice regarding the application for the appropriate standards and codes of practice to ensure compliance of Landmark stores and other activities across Australia. We have submitted a list of fertilisers to be handled on site along with their relevant safety data sheets for these products. The storage and sale of fertiliser is not an offensive trade as defined in Schedule 2 of the Health Act. These products are non-hazardous, are not scheduled poisons and are not dangerous goods. The property is located within a light industrial zone. We will now address the objectives of the light industrial zone. First, the fertiliser storage and load-out facility are conducted within a building, and loading is conducted under a canopy with no adverse visual impact. This is considered an appropriate activity for a light industrial zone. Second, the site is managed and operated by experienced personnel following Landmark's documented and operational and environmental management procedures. This will ensure safe, efficient and environmentally compliant operation. No fertiliser product is stored outside the building, and regular housekeeping inspections of the site will ensure that the visual amenity of the area is not compromised. Finally, the site does not adjoin any zoned or developed residential properties. The nearest residents are more than 200 metres away from the site, and there is good visual screening provided by the bushland. Thus, the residential amenity is not impacted. The operation is fully enclosed within the shed. Trucks delivering product to site are unloaded inside the shed, and trucks removing product from the site are loaded in the covered loading areas. The products are granular and not powders, and dust suppression cone is fitted to the loader. The anticipated vehicle movement for the business is approximately 3 to 4 trucks per day in peak seasons, with varying loads of 20 to 60 tonne each. The peak seasons are March, April, September, October. There's probably about 1 or 2 B-doubles per day. Outside these peak months, it's anticipated movements of 1 to 2 trucks per day on average, dispatching somewhere between 20 or 60 tonne per day. I'd also like to add that the existing road network is designed to accommodate B-doubles. In summary, Landmark has experience in the safe and compliant operation of fertiliser sites, established environmental policies, guidelines and procedures, trained and experienced employees, and prepared an environmental management plan to the site which has identified and addressed the issues associated with the safe operation of fertiliser storage depot at this site. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm prepared to move the recommendation. Councillor McCleary, is there a seconder? Councillor Miguel. Councillor McCleary.
Just a very short one, Mr Mayor, to say that all my concerns I had were addressed in our background, and the important thing that I was looking for is that there was no blending or mixing of fertilisers proposed as part of this application, and there isn't anything, we're not going to have bombs being made or anything like that. I feel fully confident that this will go ahead and it will be policed, not by us, but by the people themselves, because it's not worth them not getting it right. Thank you.
Councillor Miguel. Speaker against? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. That's approved. Welcome to Bunbury. One against. Councillor Smith. Councillor Smith votes against. The rest vote for. (10.45). Mr. Hughes. Oh, sorry, Mr. Smith. Come forward. You're on your feet, David.
Mr Mayor and councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the owner of 58 Stockley Road, who's currently incapacitated and not able to attend personally. The application to him has been a bit of a challenge based on the fact that the house next door at 56 is 6 metres from the street alignment. His house is 25 metres back and overlooks the big swamp and the areas beyond. At number 60 Stockley Road, a substantial retaining wall has been built there. The retaining wall that is proposed here, in terms of the street alignment, it effectively doubles the height of the existing retaining wall. In the boundary between 56 and 58, the highest point of the wall will be 1.2 metres, which is twice the deemed to comply height of 500 millimetres. However, on the assurance that Mr Shine will not have to bear any cost to the changes that are being proposed, and that if there is any problems that arise during the construction of the retaining wall, especially on his western boundary, Mr Shine has instructed me that he no longer opposes the application, and on that basis I leave the matter with council.
Thank you. Mr Hughes.
Dear Mayor and Councillors, on behalf of my partner Kira and I, thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you in regards to the retaining walls at 56 Stockley. We have recently just purchased the property and are yet to move in. As seen by the site photos, the eastern side and the front of the property is basically directly accessible. We have a dog, hence the need to retain and subsequently fence the front of the property and sides of the property. We also want to ensure that we have adequate privacy and security. It is acknowledged that the height of the portion of the retaining wall does not meet the deemed to comply requirements of the applicable sections in the R codes. However, this is largely due to the topography of the land. The height of the retaining wall exceeds the code by approximately 0.7 metres at the highest portion. However, the R codes have performance criteria which requires an exercise of judgment on the merits of the proposal by the city staff. The city officers have recommended approval, and we consider that the proposal meets the performance criteria for the following reasons. The proposed retaining wall is located approximately 25 metres from the adjoining property owner. The proposed retaining wall does not overshadow the adjoining property, does not result in visual privacy, and does not contribute to excessive building bulk. Our dwelling is set higher up on the land, therefore still providing surveillance of the street from our front yard and veranda. The terracing on the retaining wall will be landscaped, which further reduces the building bulk of the property and provides an attractive outlook when viewed from the street. The streetscape of nearby residents can be characterised with several structures located within the front setback area, including garages, retaining wall and large fences. We believe that the proposed retaining wall is in keeping with the surrounding streetscape and will enhance the attractiveness of the overall locality. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of the city's planning officer in trying to negotiate an outcome between ourselves and the adjoining landowners, which ultimately was not successful. I'd also like to note that the full cost of the retaining wall is borne by ourselves, including a feature survey to accurately depict where the boundary is. I urge you to vote for the recommendation unchanged. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, some are prepared to move the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Is there a seconder? Councillor Steck. Is there likely to be any debate? I'll put it all in favour. Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. That's approved. Councillors, we have, you've been given prior notice of a new business of an urgent nature. Can I have someone prepared to move the executive recommendation that we consider that tonight? Thank you, Councillor McCleary. Is there a seconder? Councillor Brown. All in favour? Those against? That's carried. Some prepared to move. We go behind closed doors. Thank you, Councillor McGraw. Councillor McCleary. All in favour? Councillors.